When God writes your love story, the first thing he challenges is your sense of timing, because divine love is not governed by your schedule. It is not pressured by your age, your peers, your past heartbreaks, or even your own prayers. It unfolds in a realm where time bends to purpose, not convenience. And until we understand this, we will continue to misdiagnose delays as rejection and silence as absence. You see, humanity has been trained to chase love through the lens of immediacy. We are conditioned by culture to believe that if something doesn't happen by a certain age, it is already late. That if you are not married by 30, or if you haven't met the one by 35, something must be wrong with you or with God's plan. But let me ask you, can clay rush the potter? Can the page instruct the author? Can the seed command the season? God's timing is not a cruel postponement. It is a protective arrangement. When he delays, it is not because he has forgotten. It is because he sees the entire architecture of your future, and he knows what must be matured before certain doors are opened. A love story written by God is not built in haste. It is forged in fire, refined through waiting, and made weighty through preparation. Some of us are asking God for a partner while still unhealed from the trauma of the last one. Some are seeking covenant with hearts still cluttered by counterfeits. And so God waits, not because he is passive, but because he is purposeful. When God writes your love story, he does not just prepare the other person, he prepares you. And oftentimes, the preparation feels like isolation. It feels like silence. It feels like heaven is ignoring your desire. But what you call loneliness, God calls alignment. What you call waiting, God calls working behind the scenes. The problem with our generation is that we want divine outcomes on human timelines. We swipe, scroll, and settle, believing that love is a commodity we can manufacture with effort. But God's love story cannot be manipulated. You cannot fast track it. You cannot manifest it. You can only submit to it, because what God is doing is deeper than just finding you someone who makes you smile. He is writing a narrative that will outlive your feelings. He is constructing a partnership that will not just cater to your emotional needs, but carry the weight of your shared assignment. This is why the delay is not in vain, because God is not interested in giving you a relationship that looks good on Instagram but fails under pressure. He is not interested in satisfying your loneliness temporarily only for you to become imprisoned in a union that was never ordained. So he waits and he watches, not just for the other person to be ready, but for your identity to be solid, your faith to be matured, your heart to be healed. Sometimes the story doesn't begin until you've stopped writing your own chapters. Sometimes it takes walking alone, not because you're unworthy of love, but because God wants to detox you from the noise, from the lies you believed, from the patterns you normalized. You see, if God gave you what you prayed for prematurely, it might destroy you. Not because it was wrong, but because you weren't ready. There's a psychological principle here that cannot be ignored. Humans are meaning-seeking creatures. But often, in seasons of waiting, we assign the wrong meaning to our delay. We say, maybe God doesn't want me to be loved. Or maybe I'm just hard to love. Or maybe I missed my moment. But I tell you today, no one can delay what God has destined. But he will protect you from arriving at a promise prematurely. Because premature exposure can lead to permanent damage. Philosophically speaking, we often confuse linear time with divine time. In Greek, there are two concepts of time, chronos, which is chronological, and kairos, which is opportune. The word moves in chronos, but God moves in kairos, which means you can be on time by the standards of the word, but completely out of step with God's plan. When God writes your love story, he does not consult your calendar. He looks at the maturity of your soul. That is why you must learn to trust the silence, trust the wait, trust the delay. Because in that delay, God is forming the version of you who will not sabotage the blessing when it arrives. He is forming the version of you who can love without fear, commit without doubt, and lead without insecurity. He is not just creating a love story, he is cultivating a legacy. So when you look around and wonder why everyone else seems to be finding someone while you are still walking alone, remember this: speed is not the same as sustainability, and the fastest love is not always the deepest. Many start fast but burn out. But when God writes it, it may start slow, but it will endure, because what is born of God carries the strength to survive storms, not just sunsets. And so I say to you, don't panic in the pause. Don't curse the waiting room. Don't idolize temporary connections just to soothe permanent wounds. Wait for the story God is writing, because when he writes it, it won't just fit your heart, it will fit your future. It won't just feel good, it will do good. And it won't just make you happy, it will make you whole. When God writes your love story, he does not begin with physical attraction. He begins with spiritual alignment. He does not ask, do they give you butterflies? He asks, can they carry your cross? You see, human love is often built on how we feel, but divine love is built on how we function together in purpose, in mission, in covenant. This is why so many unions collapse under the weight of unshared purpose. Because attraction, though real, is temporary, but alignment sustains. The tragedy of our time is that we have reduced love to chemistry and compatibility to charisma. We match profiles, we curate images, we manipulate conversations to impress rather than reveal. But in doing so, we often construct a house with no foundation, built to collapse. When God authors your relationship, he does not merely give you someone who looks good standing next to you. He gives you someone who will kneel beside you in prayer when life breaks you. Someone who will not be intimidated by your calling, but will be a co-laborer in it. Because divine love is not about emotional convenience. It is about divine convergence. When two assignments align under heaven's agenda, that kind of love is not always loud. It's not always glamorous, but it is powerful. It is durable. It is deeply rooted in the knowledge that your partner is not your project, not your idol, not your escape. They are your divine partner in purpose. Let me put it this way. When the word tells you to look for the one, what it really means is find someone who completes your fantasy. But when heaven sends the one, God is saying, here is someone who complements your calling. And that's a shift we must be willing to make if we are to step into love stories authored by God. Because he does not write fairy tales, he writes blueprints. A relationship built on mere pleasure will not survive the weight of spiritual warfare. A marriage based only on aesthetics will not weather the seasons of pruning, testing, and waiting. And if you are unequally yoked, not just in belief, but in vision, in purpose, in assignment, then no amount of affection will keep you aligned. Because what you are building is not just a romance, it is a legacy. Philosophically, we must begin to question the framework through which we define compatibility. For too long, compatibility has been reduced to shared hobbies, personality types, or surface-level preferences. But the ancients understood love as something deeper, something sacred. Plato spoke of a love that calls the soul to remember its origin. Augustine spoke of love as a mirror reflecting the divine. In that light, love is not about finding someone who fits your life. It is about finding someone who awakens your spirit. And this is where we must mature, because spiritual maturity understands that true partnership is not about two perfect people. It is about two people perfectly submitted to God's process. Alignment is not perfection, it is intentionality. It is a shared rhythm of obedience, of growth, of surrender. And when you are aligned, love becomes a catalyst, not a distraction. You no longer have to dim your light to keep someone else comfortable. You don't have to abandon your purpose for the sake of companionship. You walk together in truth. You sharpen one another like iron. You correct with grace. You celebrate with humility. And above all, you build with eternity in mind. This is why many people miss the story God is writing, because they're looking for chemistry while ignoring covenant. Chemistry can be found with many, But covenant is rare. Covenant is when someone sees the worst in you and still calls out the best. Covenant is when storms reveal your strength, not your cracks. Covenant is when love becomes a decision rooted in revelation, not just a feeling based on sensation. And here lies a psychological truth. We must not ignore emotions are transient. What excites you today may bore you tomorrow. What pleases your senses today may frustrate your spirit next week. But when your union is grounded in shared vision, you endure not because you feel good, but because you know it's good. There is clarity. There is confirmation. There is conviction. You can't fake alignment. You can't force it. And you certainly can't fabricate it through manipulation or pretending to be someone you're not. Because alignment requires authenticity. You must be willing to be fully known, even if that means being vulnerable. You must be willing to wait, even if it means being misunderstood. Because what God is bringing together is not for a season. It is for impact. When alignment comes, it's not just about how they treat you. It's about how they lead you closer to God. Do they sharpen your discernment? Do they push you into obedience? Do they encourage your growth or pacify your stagnation? These are the questions that matter, because at the end of the day, God is not pairing you for comfort. He's pairing you for calling. And hear me clearly. The enemy does not fear a cute couple. He fears a spiritually aligned partnership. He fears two people who know who they are, whose they are, and why they've been brought together. That kind of union shakes kingdoms. That kind of union disrupts generational curses. That kind of union plants seeds for the next 100 years. From the offense of, when God writes your love story, there is one unmistakable sign that separates it from the rest: peace. Not the shallow peace that comes from having someone to text at night. Not the fragile calm that comes from temporary emotional highs. No, I speak of a deeper peace, a peace that transcends logic, a peace that silences fear, a peace that doesn't need to shout to be heard. This peace becomes the invisible seal of divine authorship. When God is in the story, confusion dies. You see, the offense of many people are in relationships today that keep them guessing. They lie awake at night wondering, do they really love me? Why am I always the one proving my worth? Why do I feel more anxious with them than I did alone? Let me say this without hesitation. Love written by God will not torment your soul. Come the offense of, it will not leave you questioning your identity. It will not demand that you chase what's meant to walk beside you. When God orchestrates the connection, it carries the fragrance of clarity. Philosophically, we must understand that peace is not passivity. It is not stagnation. Peace is alignment between your inner reality and God's intention. It is when your spirit does not wrestle to trust, when your heart is not forced to shrink, when your mind does not live in overdrive trying to decode mixed signals. It becomes and the reason this kind of peace is rare is because many are drawn to chaos disguised as passion. We mistake emotional turbulence for deep connection. But in truth, many are addicted to instability because they have not yet tasted the stillness of God. When God brings someone into your life, He does not bypass discernment. He heightens it. You are not blinded by love. You are made more alert. You begin to see not just what you want, but what you need. You begin to hear the voice of God more clearly, not less. And that voice brings order, not confusion. God's love story doesn't feel like a maze. It feels like an unfolding, step by step, word by word, with each chapter revealing more purpose, more wholeness, more peace. And let us forget the psychological toll of counterfeit connections. Some people are not heartbroken. They are soul tired, tired of overcompensating, tired of walking on eggshells, tired of mistaking anxiety for excitement. And they wonder why their peace is eroding. The truth is, peace cannot survive where your spirit is constantly on edge. You cannot be fully yourself in a place that demands performance. And God will never author a relationship that requires you to betray yourself in order to be loved. The offense of what many call relationship goals are often just edited performances hiding dysfunction. But when heaven writes the script, The offense not need to pretend. You are loved in truth, not in illusion, embraced in process, not perfection. Does not the offense the kind of peace the world cannot give? And it certainly cannot fake. The offense of, we must also confront the culture of manipulation that has crept into modern relationships, where silence is used as a weapon, where love is conditional, where affection is given in fragments and commitment dangled like a carrot. These are not marks of a godly union. They are indicators of emotional immaturity. And the tragedy is, many enter this because they believe it is normal. But I came to tell someone today, dysfunction is not your destiny. Become the offense of manipulation is not your ministry. If the relationship constantly steals your peace, it is not sent by God. God's blessings add no sorrow. It does not mean divine loves without challenges. No. Every great story has trials, the offense of. But peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of order in the middle of conflict. You know it's God when even in disagreement, there is dignity. Even in misunderstanding, there is mutual honor. Even in correction, there is grace. Become the offense of. This is the peace that surpasses understanding. It doesn't always make sense in the natural, but your spirit will recognize it as true. It does a reason the enemy targets your peace. Because once your peace is disturbed, your discernment weakens. It does not the offense of. And once discernment is compromised, you begin to settle. You begin to tolerate what you should rebuke. The offense of, you begin to excuse what you should escape. But when you guard your peace, you preserve your clarity. You remember who you are. And that memory will keep you from falling into entanglements that delay your destiny. So I urge you, make peace your standard, not your exception. Do not chase butterflies that disappear by morning. Do not call it love if it leaves your soul restless. Wait for the one who brings confirmation, not confusion. Wait for the one who speaks life into your vision, not suspicion into your spirit. And here lies a deeper truth in peace is not just a fruit of the Spirit, it is evidence of divine agreement. When God is present in a relationship, it may still require work, but it will not feel like war. There will be mutual effort, not manipulation. There will be consistency, not chaos. There will be growth, not games. You will not have to beg for love that was always meant to find you.